The alarm screamed across New Seoul Colony like a dying animal. Red lights flashed in every building as people ran for the underground shelters. Children cried in their mothers' arms while fathers grabbed whatever weapons they could find. Ji-hoon Park dropped his medical scanner and looked out the window of the clinic. His hands shook as he saw the massive shadow moving between the buildings. The thing was 12 feet tall with legs like black steel beams. Red lights glowed under its dark shell like burning coals in the night. "She's back," whispered Minji Cho as she ran into the clinic. Her face was pale with fear. "The Crimson Terror is back." Everyone in the colony knew that name. For 3 years, the monster had attacked their settlements. She killed miners and destroyed equipment. She moved faster than anything that big should be able to move. Her claws could cut through metal like paper. Ji-hoon had been on Kepler 442b for 2 years now. He came here as a doctor and scientist to help the colonists. But instead of healing people, he spent most of his time treating wounds from monster attacks. "How many are hurt this time?" Ji-hoon asked as he grabbed his medical bag. "Dong-hyun Kim is bringing them in now," Minji said. 3 miners from the eastern sector. "One is really bad." The colony security chief burst through the door carrying a wounded man. Blood covered Dong-hyun's uniform. His face was hard like stone, but his eyes showed the fear he tried to hide. "She got Patterson," Dong-hyun said as he put the injured miner on the medical table. Claws went right through his shoulder. "The other 2 have broken bones." Ji-hoon started working on the wounded man. The cuts were deep but clean. Too clean. Most animals made rough tears when they attacked. But these wounds looked almost surgical. "Did anyone see where she went?" Ji-hoon asked while he cleaned the cuts. "Back to the mountains like always," Dong-hyun said. But this time was different. She seemed angry, more violent than before. Hyejin Lee ran in from the communications center. Her black hair was messy from running. "I got the attack on the security cameras," she said. "You need to see this." They followed her to the communications room. The screen showed the eastern mining area 2 hours ago. Workers were loading ore into trucks when the shadow appeared. The Crimson Terror moved like liquid death. Her 4 arms struck with perfect timing. But Ji-hoon noticed something strange. The monster avoided the small building next to the mining site. That building was the daycare center where workers left their children. "Look at her movement pattern," Ji-hoon said, pointing at the screen. "She goes around the children's building. Never gets close to it." "So what?" Dong-hyun said. "Maybe she just wanted the mining equipment." But Ji-hoon kept watching. The creature destroyed 3 mining machines but left the medical supply truck untouched. She could have easily killed more miners, but instead she seemed to drive them away from the area. "Play it again," Ji-hoon said. This time he watched more carefully. When one miner fell near the daycare building, the terror actually stepped over him without causing harm. A mindless killer would not do that. "There's something we're missing here," Ji-hoon said. "This doesn't look like random violence." Dong-hyun laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Are you serious?" "That thing has killed 47 colonists in 3 years. It destroyed half our mining equipment. What part of that seems reasonable to you?" "I'm not saying it's reasonable," Ji-hoon said. "I'm saying it might not be random." Minji looked worried. "Ji-hoon, people are scared. They don't want to hear that the monster might be thinking. That makes it worse." The wounded miner groaned on the medical table. Ji-hoon went back to treating his injuries. As he worked, he thought about what he had seen. The Valdari were supposed to be primitive creatures. That was what the first survey teams reported. Simple animals with no real intelligence. But everything about this attack suggested planning. The terror knew exactly what to target. She moved with purpose, not rage. 3 days later, another attack happened at the western mining site. This time, Ji-hoon asked to see the recordings immediately. Again, the pattern was the same. The creature avoided areas where colonists kept their families safe. She targeted mining equipment and storage facilities. "She's looking for something," Ji-hoon told Minji as they walked through the colony center, "or protecting something." "The only thing in those mountains is more Valdari," Minji said. "Maybe she's protecting them." "From what?" "We're just mining. We're not hunting them." Minji stopped walking. "Ji-hoon, do you know what we're mining up there?" "Rare earth metals, titanium. The usual stuff colonies need." "Do you know where exactly we're mining?" Ji-hoon realized he didn't know the details. He was too busy treating injured people to pay attention to mining operations. "Show me." They went to Minji's office where she pulled up the geological surveys. The mining sites were scattered across the northern mountains. Each site was marked with production numbers and mineral types. Now look at this, Minji said. She pulled up another map. This one showed where colonists had spotted Valdari creatures over the past 3 years. The two maps matched almost perfectly. Every mining site was in an area where Valdari had been seen. We're mining in their territory, Jihoon said. Not just their territory, Minji said. Look at these readings from the mining sites. The chemical analysis showed something interesting. The soil around the mining areas had unusual biological markers. Organic compounds that suggested the presence of living creatures. What if those aren't just random places where Valdari live? Jihoon said. What if they're breeding grounds? The idea hit him like a cold wind. If the Valdari use those mountain caves to raise their young, then human mining would seem like an invasion. The Crimson Terror wasn't attacking for fun. She was defending her family. I need to see those mining sites, Jihoon said. That's restricted area, Minji warned. Dongyun has security teams up there now. He's planning a major operation to find the Terror's lair. What kind of operation? Minji's expression grew dark. The kind that ends with dead Valdari. All of them. That night, Jihoon couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the attacks. If the Crimson Terror was protecting young Valdari, then she wasn't a monster. She was a mother. The next morning brought news that changed everything. Heejin burst into the clinic with her portable radio crackling with urgent messages. Another attack, she said. But this one's different. The Terror is injured. Jihoon grabbed his equipment. How badly? Security team got lucky shots when she retreated. Dongyun thinks they can track her now. He's organizing a hunt. As Jihoon ran toward the scene of the latest attack, one thought filled his mind. An injured mother was the most dangerous creature in the universe, but it was also the most desperate. The hunt was about to begin, and Jihoon was starting to realize that the real monster might be the humans who wanted to destroy a family they didn't understand. 3 weeks passed since the last attack. The colony felt like a town holding its breath. Everyone waited for the Crimson Terror to strike again. Security teams patrolled day and night. Children stayed close to their parents. Jihoon spent those weeks doing something no one else thought to do. He studied the monster. Every morning, he walked to his small office behind the medical clinic. The walls were covered with maps, photos, and charts. Red pins marked every place the Terror had attacked. Blue pins showed where colonists had spotted Valdari creatures. Yellow pins marked the mining sites. The pattern was becoming clear. You're obsessed with this thing, Minji said as she brought him coffee. She looked at the wall of information with worried eyes. People are starting to talk. Let them talk, Jihoon said. He pointed to the map. Look at this. Every attack happens within 5 miles of a mining operation. Every single one? Maybe she just likes the noise, Minji said. But she didn't sound convinced. Jihoon had been keeping detailed records. Attack times, locations, what was damaged, what was ignored. The more he studied, the more questions he had. The Terror always attacked at night. She always came from the North Mountains. She always left the same way. But the strangest thing was what she chose to destroy. Mining equipment was always damaged. Storage buildings were always broken into, but medical supplies were never touched. Food storage was left alone. Living areas were avoided completely. She's looking for something specific, Jihoon told himself as he updated his charts. That afternoon, Heejin brought him security footage from the latest attack. Dongyun said you might want to see this, she said. But he also said you're wasting your time. The footage showed the Terror moving through the mining site like she owned it. But this time Jihoon watched something different. He watched what the creature took. She ripped open storage containers and looked inside them. When she found metal equipment, she ignored it. When she found chemical containers, she smashed them. But when she found medical supplies, she carried them away. She's stealing medicine, Jihoon said. Monsters don't use medicine, Heejin said. This one does. That evening, Jihoon made a decision that would change his life. He decided to visit the waste disposal area behind the colony. If the Terror was taking medical supplies, maybe she was leaving clues about what she needed them for. The disposal area was a large pit where the colony dumped non-recyclable waste. Most of it was mining debris and old equipment, but Jihoon wasn't looking for normal trash. He found what he was looking for near the edge of the pit, strange organic material that didn't belong to any earth creature. It was dark green with a texture like thick rubber, but parts of it glowed with a faint red light, Valdari biological matter. Jihoon carefully collected samples and took them back to his lab. Under the microscope, the material showed signs of cellular damage, the kind of damage caused by chemical poisoning. Someone is sick, Ji-hoon said to the empty lab, and it's not human. The next morning brought terrible news. The mining supervisor reported that production was down at the northern sites. Equipment kept breaking. Workers were finding their tools damaged when they arrived for shifts. It's sabotage, Dong-yun announced at the daily security meeting. That creature is getting smarter. She's learning to hurt us without direct attacks. But Ji-hoon had a different theory. He asked to see the damaged equipment. The mining tools showed a strange pattern of damage. They weren't smashed or broken randomly. Instead, they had been carefully dismantled. Important parts were missing. Other parts were bent in ways that made them useless but could be fixed. This isn't sabotage, Ji-hoon told Minji later. This is someone trying to stop the mining without permanently destroying everything. Why would she do that? Because she needs us to stop digging, but she doesn't want to destroy things she might need later. That night, Ji-hoon couldn't sleep again. He walked to his office and stared at the maps. Something was still missing from the pattern. The Terror was taking medicine and trying to stop mining operations. But why? He pulled up geological surveys of the mining sites. The northern mountains were rich in rare metals, but they were also something else. The survey showed extensive cave systems running through the mountain range. Cave systems perfect for nesting. She's not just protecting territory, Ji-hoon said to himself. She's protecting babies. The thought made his hands shake. If Valdari young were living in those caves, then human mining operations were poisoning their nursery. The chemical runoff from mining would seep into the water supply. The noise and vibration would disturb developing offspring. The Crimson Terror wasn't a monster attacking humans for fun. She was a mother watching her children die. 2 days later, everything changed. Ji-hoon was treating a minor injury when Hyejin ran into the clinic. Her face was white with shock. There's been an accident at mining site 7, she said. A cave-in. 3 miners are trapped. I'll get my emergency kit, Ji-hoon said. That's not the worst part, Hyejin continued. Dong-yun sent a security team to help with the rescue. They found something in the caves, and what did they find? Valdari. Living ones. And they're small. Ji-hoon felt the world shift around him. How small? Child-sized. Maybe smaller. The rescue took 6 hours. Ji-hoon worked alongside the security team to free the trapped miners. All 3 survived with minor injuries, but what they found in the caves would haunt everyone. The cave system was larger than anyone expected. Chambers connected by tunnels that went deep into the mountain, and in several chambers there were clear signs of habitation, nests made from organic material, food storage areas, and in the deepest chamber something that made Ji-hoon's heart break. Tiny Valdari bodies. Young creatures that had died from chemical poisoning. Now we know why she's so angry, one of the miners said. But Ji-hoon saw something else in that cave. Fresh tracks, recent nests, signs that some of the young were still alive. The Terror wasn't just fighting for territory. She was fighting for the lives of her children. And she was losing. That night, Dong-yun called a colony meeting. We found their breeding ground, he announced. This is our chance to end the threat permanently. I'm organizing a full-scale assault on the cave system. We'll eliminate every Valdari in those mountains. The colonists cheered. They wanted the nightmare to end, but Ji-hoon stood up in the back of the room. What if we're wrong about them? The room went quiet. What if they're not monsters? Ji-hoon continued. What if they're just trying to protect their families? Dong-yun's face turned red with anger. Are you defending the creature that's been killing our people? I'm asking if we've considered that we might be the ones causing this conflict. The room erupted in angry voices. Some colonists supported Ji-hoon's questions. Others called him a traitor. The meeting ended with the colony more divided than ever. Later that night, Minji found Ji-hoon in his office staring at the maps. You're planning something stupid, aren't you? She said. I need to know the truth, Ji-hoon replied. If those young Valdari are still alive, they need medical help. Help that only I can provide. And if the Terror kills you for getting too close, Ji-hoon looked at the photos of the dead Valdari young. Then at least I'll die knowing I tried to save innocent lives. Outside, storm clouds gathered over the mountains. In 3 days, Dong-yun would launch his assault. And somewhere in those caves, a mother was running out of time to save her children. Ji-hoon made his decision. Tomorrow he would go to the mountains. Tomorrow he would meet the Terror face to face. The morning mist hung over the northern mountains like a gray blanket. Jihoon checked his equipment one more time. Medical scanner, emergency supplies, translation device, and a small camera. Everything he might need to document first contact with an intelligent species, or everything he might need to treat his own wounds if this went wrong. "You don't have to do this," Minji said as she helped him load supplies into his backpack. They stood at the edge of the colony, far from the security checkpoints. "Yes, I do," Jihoon replied. "In 2 days, Donghyun launches his attack. Those young Veldari won't survive it." Minji handed him a portable communicator. "Stay in contact. If something happens, I'll send help." Jihoon looked back at the colony one last time. Children were playing in the central square while their parents worked. Normal life continuing while death approached in the mountains. "If I don't come back, show them the evidence," Jihoon said. "Show them the medical scans of the poisoned young. Make them understand what we've done." The hike to the northern mountains took 4 hours. Jihoon followed mining trails for the first part, then used his scanner to track the glowing traces he had learned to recognize. Veldari blood had a unique chemical signature that showed up clearly on his medical equipment. The trail led him higher into the mountains than any colonist had gone before. The air grew thin and cold. Strange plants grew here that he had never seen. Some of them seemed to glow with the same red light as Veldari biological matter. After 6 hours of climbing, Jihoon found what he was looking for. The cave entrance was hidden behind a wall of the glowing plants. It looked natural, but Jihoon could see that someone had carefully arranged the growth to conceal the opening. This wasn't just a cave. It was a designed shelter. He activated his medical scanner and immediately detected multiple life forms inside the cave system. Most of the signatures were small and weak, but one was large and moving toward the entrance. Jihoon's heart pounded as he realized the Crimson Terror was coming. He had seconds to decide what to do. Run and abandon his mission, or stay and hope that maternal instinct was stronger than territorial aggression. He chose to stay. The creature that emerged from the cave was even larger than the security footage had shown. 12 feet tall with 4 powerful arms ending in claws that could cut through steel. Her dark exoskeleton was covered in glowing red patterns that pulsed like a heartbeat. But she was hurt. One of her arms hung at an awkward angle. Green fluid leaked from wounds in her side. The security team's lucky shots had done more damage than anyone realized. The terror froze when she saw Jihoon. Her 4 eyes focused on him with an intelligence that was unmistakably sentient. She could have killed him in seconds, but instead she studied him. Jihoon slowly raised his hands to show he carried no weapons. Then he did something that surprised even him. He pointed to his medical scanner and then to her wounds. The creature tilted her head in a gesture that seemed almost human. She was trying to understand. Jihoon activated the medical scanner and pointed it at himself first. The device beeped and showed his vital signs. Then he pointed it toward her, careful to make his movements slow and obvious. The terror looked at the scanner, then at him, then back at the scanner. After a long moment, she stepped closer. The medical readings made Jihoon's breath catch. The creature wasn't just injured from the security team's weapons. She was sick. Chemical poisoning was slowly killing her from the inside. But worse than her own condition were the readings from inside the cave. Multiple small life forms, all showing signs of severe toxin exposure. Most of them were dying. Jihoon looked up at the massive creature and saw something that changed everything. In her 4 eyes, he saw the same expression he had seen on human mothers when their children were sick: desperate love. Helpless fear. The willingness to do anything to save her young. The terror made a sound unlike anything Jihoon had heard before. It was deep and complex, with multiple tones that seemed to carry meaning. She was trying to communicate. Jihoon activated his translation device, though he doubted it would help with an unknown language. But the terror seemed to recognize the purpose of the device. She repeated her sounds more slowly. "Help," the translator said in a mechanical voice. "Young ones, sick." Jihoon almost dropped the device. The translation wasn't perfect, but the meaning was clear. The terror was asking for help. She turned and walked toward the cave entrance, then looked back at him. The invitation was obvious. Following a wounded predator into her den was probably the stupidest thing Jihoon had ever done. But he did it anyway. The cave system was amazing. Carved tunnels connected multiple chambers, each designed for a specific purpose. One chamber held food supplies. Another contained tools made from carved stone and metal. The construction showed intelligence and planning. But it was the nursery chamber that broke Jihoon's heart. Dozens of small Valdari lay in nests made from soft organic material. They were beautiful creatures with the same red patterns as their mother, but much smaller. Most were motionless. Several were clearly dead. The terror led him to the sickest of the young. This one was barely breathing, its red patterns dim and flickering. She made the same complex sound as before, but now it carried a tone that needed no translation. She was pleading. Jihoon knelt beside the dying young Valdari and activated his medical scanner. The readings showed massive organ failure from chemical poisoning. Specifically, the same chemicals used in human mining operations. He looked at the rest of the nursery. Every single young showed signs of the same poisoning. The mining runoff wasn't just contaminating their habitat, it was slowly killing an entire generation. "I understand," Jihoon said softly. The terror might not understand his words, but she seemed to understand his tone. He opened his medical kit and began working. The treatments designed for humans might not work perfectly on Valdari biology, but the principles were the same. Flush the toxins, support organ function, provide fluids and nutrients. For the next 3 hours, Jihoon worked alongside the creature he had been taught to fear. She helped him move the young ones and seemed to understand what he was trying to do. More importantly, she trusted him with her children. As he worked, Jihoon learned things that would revolutionize human understanding of the Valdari. They had complex family structures. They used tools. They had art, decorating their caves with beautiful patterns. They even had what appeared to be written language. The Valdari weren't primitive creatures. They were an intelligent species with their own culture and civilization. The terror, whom Jihoon began thinking of as the mother, showed him drawings on the cave walls. They depicted Valdari families living peacefully in the mountains. Then came images of large machines and strange creatures that could only be humans. The final drawings showed sick young Valdari and empty nests. It was a story of environmental destruction told in pictures. "We didn't know," Jihoon said as he treated another young Valdari. "We didn't know you were here." The mother made a sound that the translator interpreted as "now you know." But knowing was only the beginning. Jihoon's treatments were helping, but slowly. Some of the young were responding, but others were too far gone, and his supplies were limited. More importantly, in less than 2 days, Donghyun would arrive with security teams and weapons. They would see this nursery as a target to eliminate, not a family to protect. The mother seemed to understand the urgency. She showed Jihoon other chambers, other families. The cave system was home to hundreds of Valdari. All of them were suffering from the effects of human mining. As the day ended, Jihoon sat in the nursery chamber watching the mother tend to her young. Several were breathing easier thanks to his treatments, but many more needed help that he couldn't provide alone. The mother approached him and made a complex series of sounds. The translator struggled with the meaning, but eventually offered, "You help small ones." "Why?" Jihoon looked at the young Valdari, then at their mother. "Because they're children," he said simply. "Because you're a mother. Because it's the right thing to do." The mother was quiet for a long time. Then she made another sound. "Thank you." That night, Jihoon used his communicator to contact Minji. He told her everything he had learned. The intelligence of the Valdari. The poisoning of their young. The desperate mother who had been fighting not for territory but for her children's lives. "You need to come back," Minji said. Donghyun moved up the attack. "He's coming tomorrow." Jihoon looked at the mother who was still caring for her sick children. "I can't leave them. If you stay, you'll die with them." "Maybe," Jihoon said. "But maybe I can find another way." He turned off the communicator and looked at the mother. She was watching him with those intelligent eyes. Tomorrow would bring violence and death unless something changed. But tonight, in this cave, a human and a Valdari were working together to save innocent lives. It was a beginning. Jihoon woke up in the Valdari cave to the sound of soft clicking. The mother was moving between the nests, checking on her young ones. 3 of the sickest had survived the night thanks to his treatments. It wasn't much, but it was hope. The mother approached him and made a series of gentle sounds. The translator device offered, "Morning greetings. Young ones better?" "Good morning," Jihoon replied. "Some are better. But they need more medicine." The mother tilted her massive head. She was learning to understand his speech patterns even without the translator. Intelligence like hers could adapt quickly. Through careful communication over the next hour, Jihoon learned something that changed everything. The mother had a name, The complex sounds she made when referring to herself translated roughly as keeper of the young. But the closest human equivalent was Velthara. Velthara, Jihoon said, trying to pronounce it correctly. She made a pleased sound and repeated his name back to him. Jihoon, healer of young ones. Their conversation was interrupted by his communicator crackling to life. Jihoon, where are you? Minji's voice was filled with worry. Donghyun is gathering weapons. He thinks you're dead. Jihoon looked at Velthara, who was listening intently. Her 4 eyes showed concern. I'm alive, Jihoon said into the communicator. And I've made contact. Contact with what? With whom? Jihoon corrected. Her name is Velthara. She's been trying to save her children. Static filled the line for several seconds. Then Minji's voice came back quieter. Are you saying the terror has a name? I'm saying she was never a terror. She's a mother watching her babies die from our mining chemicals. Velthara seemed to understand that Jihoon was talking to other humans. She made several sounds that the translator interpreted as more humans. Will they help young ones? I don't know, Jihoon told her honestly. Then he spoke into the communicator again.
Minji, I need medical supplies.
Lots of them. The young Valdari are dying from chemical poisoning. Jihoon, you can't just take colony medical supplies to treat alien creatures. Donghyun would arrest you for treason. Then don't tell him. Another long silence. Then, what exactly are you asking me to do? Help me save innocent children. That afternoon, Minji made the most dangerous decision of her life. She began smuggling medical supplies out of the colony. It wasn't easy. Security was tight because of the planned attack. But Minji knew the colony systems better than anyone. She took small amounts from different locations. A few bottles of medicine from the main clinic. Some IV fluids from the emergency supplies. Antibiotics from the research lab. Meanwhile, Jihoon worked with Velthara to understand Valdari biology. Through pictures drawn in the cave dirt and careful observation, they figured out how human medicines could be adapted for Valdari physiology. Valdari were more complex than humans had imagined. They had 2 hearts and a different blood chemistry, but their nervous systems were similar enough that many human treatments could work with proper dosage adjustments. More importantly, Jihoon learned that the Valdari were not native to this planet. They were nomadic, traveling between worlds to find safe places for their young to develop. This mountain range was supposed to be a temporary nursery, but the chemical contamination had trapped them here. Why didn't you just leave? Jihoon asked through the translator. Velthara showed him deeper into the cave system. In a chamber Jihoon hadn't seen before, dozens of Valdari young were in cocoon-like structures. They were in the middle of a biological transformation that couldn't be interrupted. Development stage. The translator interpreted Velthara's explanation. Cannot move during change. Takes many months. Now Jihoon understood the desperation behind the attacks. Velthara couldn't evacuate her people. The young were trapped in their cocoons until the transformation finished. All she could do was try to stop the poisoning and steal medicine to keep them alive. That evening, Minji successfully delivered the first supply drop to a location outside the colony. Jihoon met her there after dark. This is insane, Minji said as she handed over a bag of medical supplies. If anyone finds out what we're doing, they won't, Jihoon said. Velthara is incredibly intelligent. She knows how to stay hidden. Velthara? The Crimson Terror. That's her real name. It means keeper of the young. Minji stared at him. You're talking about her like she's a person. Because she is a person. Just not a human person. Over the next week, Jihoon and Minji developed a system. Minji would leave supplies at dead drops around the colony. Jihoon would collect them and carry them to the caves. Velthara began to trust this arrangement and even help by carrying larger items that Jihoon couldn't manage alone. The results were remarkable. With proper medical treatment, many of the young Valdari began to recover. Their red patterns grew brighter. They became more active. Some even began making the soft clicking sounds that seemed to be their version of laughter. But not all the news was good. Hijin was starting to ask questions about the missing medical supplies. Her job was to track colony resources, and she was too smart to miss the pattern. Someone is stealing from the medical stocks, she told Donghyun during a security briefing. Small amounts, but consistently. How much? Donghyun asked. Enough to treat 12 people for several weeks. But we haven't had that many patients. Dongyun's eyes narrowed. or enough to treat something else entirely. Meanwhile, Jihoon was learning more about Valdari culture. They were peaceful by nature, preferring to avoid conflict whenever possible. Their attacks on the colony had been acts of desperation, not aggression. Velthara showed him artwork on the cave walls that depicted Valdari history. They were explorers and nurturers, traveling the galaxy to find safe worlds for their young. They had encountered many species over thousands of years, but always tried to coexist peacefully. Humans different, she told Jihoon one day as they worked together to treat a young Valdari with breathing problems. Humans change world fast, make world sick. We didn't know you were here, Jihoon said. Humans explore space to find new homes too. We don't mean to hurt other species, Velthara considered this. Some humans good. Like Jihoon. Like Minji human. She had learned Minji's name from listening to their radio conversations. Valdari hearing was incredibly acute. Yes, Jihoon agreed. Some humans are good, but some are scared. Scared humans do bad things. Scared humans come soon? Jihoon checked his watch. Donghyun's attack was planned for tomorrow morning. Very soon. That night, Jihoon made a decision that would put everyone at risk. He used his communicator to call not just Minji, but Hyejin as well. I need both of you to listen to me, he said. I need you to understand what's really happening here. Jihoon, where are you? Hyejin's voice crackled through the static. I'm with a mother who's trying to save her children, just like any human mother would do. He told them everything. The poisoned young, the nomadic culture, the intelligence and gentleness of the Valdari, the fact that the attacks had been desperate attempts to save a dying generation. You're asking us to believe that monsters are actually refugees, Hyejin said. I'm asking you to look at the evidence, Jihoon replied. He transmitted medical scans and recordings of Valdari language. These are the readings from intelligent beings, not animals, people. Minji's voice was quiet when she finally spoke. What do you want us to do? Stop the attack. Give me time to find a peaceful solution. Donghyun will never agree to that, Hyejin said. He's convinced the colony is in mortal danger. Then we have to show him the truth. There was a long silence. Then Hyejin said something that surprised everyone. I've been tracking the medical supply thefts. I know you two have been working together, and I've been wondering why someone would steal medicine instead of weapons or food. Because medicine heals instead of hurts, Jihoon said. I want to see them, Hyejin said suddenly. I want to see these Valdari children you're trying to save. Velthara had been listening to the conversation. She made a complex sound that the translator interpreted as dangerous. More humans mean more risk. She's right, Jihoon told Hyejin. If you come here, you'll be putting yourself in danger. And if Donghyun finds out, Donghyun is planning to kill an entire species tomorrow, Hyejin said. If there's even a chance you're right about them. I have to see for myself. That night, for the first time since the attacks began, 3 humans entered Valdari territory not as enemies, but as potential allies. The meeting that followed would change both species forever, but first they had to survive until morning. And somewhere in the colony, Donghyun was sharpening his weapons and planning what he believed would be the final battle against the monsters in the mountains. Dawn came too early. Jihoon woke to the sound of his communicator buzzing with urgent messages. Outside the Valdari cave, he could hear the distant rumble of vehicles approaching the mountains. Jihoon, you need to get out of there now. Minji's voice crackled through the static. Donghyun found out about the missing medical supplies. He knows someone has been helping the creatures? Jihoon's blood turned cold. How did he find out? Hyejin told him. The words hit Jihoon like a physical blow. After everything they had discussed, after Hyejin had seemed to understand, she had betrayed them. Inside the cave, Velthara sensed something was wrong. She approached with careful steps, her 4 eyes showing concern. Bad news, she asked through the translator. The scared humans are coming, Jihoon said. And they know I've been helping you. Velthara made a low sound that needed no translation. It was the sound of a mother preparing to defend her children. Must move young ones, she said. Find safe place. There is no safe place, Jihoon replied sadly. The cocoon stage means they can't be moved. We have to face this here. Over the next hour, the situation grew worse. Jihoon's communicator brought a steady stream of bad news. Donghyun had declared him a traitor to the human colony. Security teams were surrounding the mountain area. Worst of all, they had brought heavy weapons designed to collapse cave systems. But then something unexpected happened. Minji's voice came through the communicator with different news. Ji-hoon, not everyone believes Dong-yun is right, she said. Some colonists are asking questions. They want to know why a doctor would risk his life to help creatures unless there was a good reason. How many people are asking questions? About 30% of the colony, including some of the security team members. It wasn't much, but it was something. Some humans were capable of looking beyond their fear. At mid-morning, the first security team reached the cave entrance. Ji-hoon watched from inside as armed humans took positions around the hidden opening. Their weapons were pointed at the cave, ready to fire at anything that moved. But they didn't attack immediately. Instead, a voice called out from outside. Ji-hoon Park, this is Security Chief Dong-yun Kim. You have one chance to surrender yourself and exit the cave. After that, we will use all necessary force. Ji-hoon looked at Velthara. She was surrounded by her young ones, many of whom were still too sick to move. Her own injuries from weeks ago had healed, but she was outnumbered and outgunned. I'm coming out, Ji-hoon called back. But I want to talk first. He walked to the cave entrance with his hands raised. 20 armed humans were positioned around the area, their weapons trained on the opening behind him. Dong-yun stood in the center, his face hard with anger. You've been treating the enemy, he said. Giving aid and comfort to the creatures that have been killing our people. I've been treating sick children, Ji-hoon replied. Children who are dying because of our mining operations. Those aren't children. Those are monsters. Have you seen them? Have you looked at what's actually in that cave? Dong-yun's expression didn't change. I don't need to see them. I know what they are. But one of the security team members stepped forward. It was Tae-woo, a young man who had joined the colony only 6 months ago. Chief Kim, Tae-woo said carefully. Maybe we should look before we act. Dr. Park is a good man. If he says there are children in there, Dr. Park is a traitor, Dong-yun snapped. And you'll follow orders or join him in custody. That's when everything changed. The sound came from inside the cave. Soft clicking noises that could only be made by very young creatures. The sounds were followed by a complex series of tones that clearly formed a pattern. What is that? Tae-woo asked. That's a lullaby, Ji-hoon said quietly. A mother singing to her babies. The security team members looked at each other uncertainly. The sounds from the cave didn't match what they had been told about mindless monsters. Then Velthara appeared at the cave entrance. The security team raised their weapons, but she made no aggressive moves. Instead, she carefully approached Ji-hoon and placed one of her massive hands on his shoulder, in a gesture that was unmistakably protective. Ji-hoon Human is friend, she said through the translator device. Ji-hoon Human helps young ones live. The effect on the security team was immediate. Several of them lowered their weapons slightly. These were not the actions of a mindless killer. It talks, whispered Sung-ho, another security team member. She talks, Ji-hoon corrected. Her name is Velthara. She's the mother of the young ones inside. Dong-yun's face turned red with rage. I don't care what it calls itself. It's killed 47 colonists. Because we were poisoning her children, Ji-hoon said. Every attack was an attempt to stop the mining operations that were killing them. Lies, Dong-yun said. But his voice carried less certainty than before. That's when Velthara did something that shocked everyone. She walked away from Ji-hoon toward the armed humans. Several raised their weapons, but she stopped just out of striking range and made a series of complex sounds. The translator struggled with the complexity, but finally offered, I am Velthara, keeper of the young. My people are dying from the sickness in the water. I attacked your machines to save my children. I did not want to hurt your people. I am sorry for the deaths. Please let the healer help my young ones live. The silence that followed was deafening. Here was the creature they had called the Crimson Terror, apologizing for defending her children and asking for help. Tae-woo was the first to lower his weapon completely. Chief Kim, I think we need to reconsider this situation. The only thing we need to reconsider is whether to take prisoners or eliminate the threat entirely, Dong-yun said. He raised his own weapon toward Velthara, but before he could fire, something unexpected happened. Other colonists began arriving at the scene. Led by Minji, a group of about 50 people had followed the security teams to the mountains. Stop, Minji called out. We want to see what's really happening here. Among the group was Hyejin, but her expression was different from what Ji-hoon expected. She looked guilty and determined at the same time. Dong-yun, she said loudly, I need to tell everyone the truth about why I reported the missing medical supplies. The security chief's face showed confusion. You reported them because it was your duty. I reported them because I wanted to find out what was really happening, Hyejin said. I've been analyzing the data from the attacks. The patterns, the targets, the timing, everything points to defensive behavior, not aggression. She pulled out a portable display device and projected images for everyone to see. Maps showing attack patterns, chemical analysis of mining runoff, and most importantly, audio recordings of the sounds coming from the cave. These are not the sounds of monsters, Hyejin said. These are the sounds of a family in distress. The colonists began to murmur among themselves. Some still looked fearful, but others appeared thoughtful. Then one of the security team members, Kyungmin, asked the question that changed everything. If they're intelligent, and if we're the ones causing the problem, what does that make us? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Ji-hoon saw the exact moment when some of the colonists began to understand the true situation. Valthera seemed to sense the shift in mood. She made another series of sounds, gentler this time. What did she say? Minji asked. Ji-hoon checked the translator. She says she wants to show us her children. She wants us to understand what we've been fighting about. Dong-hyun stepped forward, his weapon still raised. No one is going into that cave. This ends now. But Tae-woo and 2 other security team members moved to block him. Chief, Tae-woo said respectfully, I think we should see what's in there before we make any final decisions. For the first time since the crisis began, Dong-hyun was outnumbered by his own people. The group that followed Valthera into the cave was small but diverse. Ji-hoon, Minji, Hyejin, Tae-woo, and Kyungmin. Behind them, the rest of the colonists waited anxiously. What they saw inside changed everything they thought they knew about the enemy they had been fighting. The nursery chamber was filled with small, Veldari in various stages of development. Some were in the cocoon structures Ji-hoon had learned about. Others were young but active, making soft clicking sounds and displaying the same red patterns as their mother. But most importantly, many of them were clearly sick. Their patterns were dim, their movements weak. Oh my God, Hyejin whispered. They're just babies. Valthera moved among her young ones, checking on each one with obvious maternal care. When she reached the sickest group, she made sounds that clearly expressed grief and desperation. The mining chemicals are in the water supply, Ji-hoon explained. It's been slowly poisoning them for months. Tae-woo knelt beside one of the young Veldari. The creature looked up at him with large, curious eyes. There was no fear, only innocent interest in this strange new being. This changes everything, Kyungmin said quietly. When they emerged from the cave, the colonists outside could see the truth in their expressions. What did you find? Someone called out. We found a nursery, Minji said. We found sick children and a mother trying to save them. The crowd fell silent. Then arguments began breaking out between those who wanted to help and those who still wanted to fight. But the most important change had already happened. The humans were no longer united against the Veldari. They were divided between fear and compassion. The argument lasted for 3 hours. Half the colonists wanted to help the Veldari. The other half wanted to finish what they came to do. Dong-hyun stood with his remaining supporters, still insisting that the creatures were too dangerous to trust. You're all being fooled, he said to the crowd. This is exactly what a smart predator would do. Show us they're young to make us weak. But Tae-woo had seen enough. Chief Kim, with respect, predators don't apologize. Predators don't ask for help. They fight or they run. And they definitely don't sing lullabies to their babies, added Kyungmin. Ji-hoon watched the debate with growing worry. Time was running out for the sickest Veldari young. While humans argued about what to do, children were dying. Valthera seemed to understand the situation. She approached Ji-hoon and made soft sounds that the translator interpreted as, humans cannot agree. Young ones need help now. I know, Ji-hoon said. But if we act too fast, the scared humans might attack. That's when Minji stepped forward with an idea that surprised everyone. What if we set up a formal meeting? She said to the crowd. Not a fight or a surrender. A real conversation between our species. You want to negotiate with monsters? Dong-hyun asked. I want to negotiate with parents, Minji replied. Just like we would with any other intelligent species. The idea caught the attention of both groups. Even some of Dong-hyun's supporters looked interested. Hyejin pulled out her data display again. Look at this analysis of Veldari behavior patterns. They show complex social structures, tool use, and problem-solving abilities. By every scientific measure, they qualify as a sentient species, which means we have laws about how to treat them, added Sungho. Colonial regulations require peaceful first contact protocols when dealing with intelligent aliens. This was news to many of the colonists. The legal implications of fighting an intelligent species were very different from defending against wild animals. Donghyun's support began to crumble as colonists realized they might be committing genocide rather than pest control. Fine, Donghyun said finally. One meeting. But if this goes wrong, the blood is on your hands. The next challenge was setting up communication. Ji-hoon's portable translator was too limited for complex negotiations. But Hee-jin had an idea. The colony has a full linguistic computer system, she said. If we can get enough Valdari language samples, we can build a real translation program. Velthara was eager to help. She spent the next several hours speaking into Hee-jin's recording devices. She told stories of Valdari history and culture. She explained their nomadic lifestyle and their methods for raising young. Most importantly, she shared their core values. Valdari believe young ones are sacred, the improved translator said as Velthara spoke. All species' young ones are sacred. We protect not just our children, but any children we find. This statement shocked the human listeners. It meant the Valdari had been avoiding human children during their attacks even when it made their missions more difficult. That's why she never attacked the daycare centers, Ji-hoon realized. She was protecting our children too. The formal meeting was scheduled for the next morning. Representatives from both species would meet in a neutral location outside the caves. But first, Ji-hoon had work to do. That night, working by portable lights, Ji-hoon and a team of volunteer colonists set up a field hospital in the cave system. The sickest Valdari young needed immediate treatment if they were going to survive the negotiations. Dr. Yoonji Shin, the colony's other medical officer, had joined the effort after seeing the young Valdari for herself. Their biology is remarkable, she told Ji-hoon as they worked together. Two hearts, redundant organ systems, incredible healing abilities. But they're also incredibly sensitive to chemical toxins. Can we save them? Ji-hoon asked. With the right treatment, yes. But we need to stop the source of the poisoning first. The source was the mining operations. Every day the machines ran. More chemicals entered the water system that fed the Valdari nurseries. When morning came, the meeting took place in a small clearing between the colony and the mountains. 12 humans sat on one side, 12 Valdari on the other. It was the first formal contact between the species. Velthara was not alone. She had brought other adult Valdari from deeper in the mountain system. Ji-hoon was amazed to see the diversity of their people. Some were larger than Velthara, clearly designed for heavy work. Others were smaller and more delicate with different patterns and colorings. But all of them showed the same intelligence in their eyes. The lead human negotiator was Minji, who had been elected by the colonists to speak for them. Donghyun sat nearby, still unhappy but bound by the decision of the majority. We want to begin by apologizing, Minji said through the new translation system. We didn't know you were living in the mountains. We didn't know our mining was making your children sick. Velthara translated for the other Valdari, then responded, We accept apology. We also apologize for the death of your people. We were desperate to save our young ones, but we should have tried to communicate first. The admission sent ripples through both groups. Here were two species acknowledging mutual mistakes and seeking forgiveness. What do you need from us? Minji asked. Clean water for our young ones, Velthara replied. Safe place to finish their development. After that, we will leave your world and find another nesting place. What can you offer us in return? This question led to the most surprising revelations of the day. The Valdari were not just intelligent. They were technologically advanced in ways humans had never imagined. Velthara gestured to one of the smaller Valdari, who stepped forward carrying what looked like a living plant. But when it was examined closely, the humans realized it was actually a biological machine. We grow our tools, the translator said as the small Valdari explained. Living metal that repairs itself, plants that clean poisoned soil, medical treatments that work with the body instead of against it. Dr. Shin examined the biological samples with growing excitement. This technology could revolutionize human medicine, she whispered to Ji-hoon. But the Valdari offerings went beyond technology. They had knowledge of space travel, of finding habitable worlds, of sustainable resource management. Most importantly, they had encountered other intelligent species throughout the galaxy. Humans are not alone, Velthara said. Many species watch your expansion into space. Some are friendly, others are not. But I'll judge you by how you treat those who are different from you. The implication was clear. How humanity handled this first contact would determine their welcome among galactic civilizations. What do we need to do? Minji asked. Stop the mining that poisons our water, Velthara replied. Help heal our young ones. Give us time to finish the nesting cycle. In return, we share our knowledge and speak well of humans to other species we meet. It sounded too good to be true, but the evidence was right in front of them. The Valdari had been trying to coexist peacefully all along. Dongyun finally spoke up. How do we know you won't attack us again once your young are healthy? Velthara turned her 4 eyes toward him. Because healthy young ones don't need defending. When our children are safe, we have no reason to fight. The logic was simple and undeniable. The negotiations continued for hours, working out details of the agreement. The mining operations would be suspended for 6 months while the young Valdari completed their development. Humans would provide medical assistance and clean water supplies. In exchange, the Valdari would share selected technologies and serve as humanity's first ambassadors to galactic civilization. But the most important agreement was simpler than any treaty. 2 species had chosen cooperation over conflict. Fear had been replaced by hope. As the meeting ended, something remarkable happened. A group of young colonist children who had been watching from a distance broke away from their parents and ran toward the Valdari. The adults on both sides tensed, ready to intervene if needed. But the children simply wanted to satisfy their curiosity about these strange new neighbors. One little girl, maybe 6 years old, walked right up to Velthara and stared up at the massive creature without fear. Are you really a mommy? The child asked. Velthara knelt down to the child's level, her movements gentle and careful. Yes, little one, I am a mother, just like your mother. Can I see your babies? Velthara looked at the human adults who nodded permission. Yes, she said. They would like to meet you too. And so the first friendship between human and Valdari began with a child's innocent curiosity and a mother's gentle response. The bridge between worlds had been built. Now it remained to be seen if both species were ready to cross it. 6 months later, New Sol Colony looked like a completely different place. The walls that once protected humans from monsters now surrounded a thriving center of interspecies cooperation. Where mining equipment once scarred the landscape, gardens of living metal grew in beautiful patterns that seemed to breathe with their own light. Jihoon walked through the joint research facility that had been built at the border between human and Valdari territories. The building itself was a marvel of 2-species engineering. Human technology provided the computers and power systems. Valdari biotechnology created walls that filtered air and floors that absorbed waste. The latest batch of young ones are responding perfectly to the new treatment, Dr. Yoonji Shin reported as she met Jihoon at the medical wing entrance. The combination of human medicine and Valdari healing plants is more effective than either approach alone. Jihoon smiled as he looked through the window into the recovery room. Young Valdari who had been dying 6 months ago were now healthy and active. Their red patterns glowed brightly as they played with toys that were part machine, part living creature. More importantly, human children were playing with them. The integration hadn't been easy. Many colonists had taken months to overcome their fear of the Valdari. Some families had even left the colony, unable to accept their new neighbors. But most had stayed and learned to see the Valdari as friends rather than threats. Dr. Park, called a familiar voice from behind him. Jihoon turned to see Tae-woo approaching. The former security officer now worked as a liaison between human and Valdari work teams. His job was to help both species understand each other's work methods and safety needs. Velthara wants to speak with you, Tae-woo said. She's at the communications center with some important news. The communications center was the heart of the new colony. Human technology and Valdari biological computers worked together to maintain contact with other human settlements and to reach out to other species in the galaxy. Jihoon found Velthara standing before a living wall that pulsed with information. The biocomputer was receiving signals from across space, translating languages that humans had never heard before. Jihoon friend, Velthara said in the much-improved translation system they now used. Good news comes from the far worlds. What kind of good news? Other Valdari clans have heard of our peace with humans. They are pleased. They will carry word to other species that humans can be trusted. This was the news Jihoon had been hoping for. The galaxy was full of intelligent life, but most species avoided contact with humans because they seemed too aggressive and destructive. The peaceful resolution at New Sol Colony was changing that perception. There's more, Velthara continued. The Keth traders want to establish a trading post here. The Zulani healers offer to share medical knowledge. Even the Threen explorers express interest in meeting humans. Jihoon felt overwhelmed by the possibilities. A year ago, humans thought they were alone in a hostile universe. Now they were being invited to join a galactic community. How do you feel about all this attention? Jihoon asked Velthara. The large Valdari made a sound that the translator had learned to interpret as laughter. We feel proud. Proud that our choice to trust humans was correct. Proud that our young ones will grow up in a peaceful world. Speaking of the young ones, they were thriving beyond anyone's expectations. The cocoon stage was complete, and the new generation of Valdari had emerged larger and stronger than their parents. But they had also emerged with something new, an instinctive understanding of human communication. The young Valdari could learn human languages naturally, while young humans seemed to pick up Valdari tonal communication with remarkable ease. The children of both species were growing up truly bilingual. Dr. Park, called Hyejin as she approached from the monitoring station. We're receiving a transmission from Earth Command. They want a full report on the situation here. This was the moment Jihoon had been both expecting and dreading. Earth Command had been monitoring the colony's reports with growing interest and concern. The idea of humans making peaceful contact with aliens was exciting, but it also raised questions about colonial authority and galactic politics. What do they want to know? Jihoon asked. Everything. Colony security, trade agreements, technology transfers, and most importantly, whether this alliance model can be replicated on other worlds. The answer to that last question was already becoming clear. Other human colonies had reported similar conflicts with local species, but now they had a new approach to try. Instead of fighting first and asking questions later, they could follow the New Sol Colony model. Communicate, understand, cooperate. That afternoon, Jihoon found himself in an unusual position. He was addressing a joint assembly of humans and Valdari, with representatives from 3 other alien species watching via long-distance communication. 6 months ago, we were enemies, Jihoon said to the mixed crowd. We fought because we didn't understand each other. We caused harm because we were afraid of what was different. In the audience, human and Valdari families sat side by side. Children of both species played quietly together while their parents listened. But fear doesn't have to lead to violence, Jihoon continued. Differences don't have to mean conflict. When we chose to see past our fear, we found something amazing. We found that love is universal. The need to protect our children exists in every intelligent species. Velthara rose from her place in the audience. Even after all this time, her size was impressive. But now her presence brought comfort rather than terror. Jihoon human speaks truth, she said. All species love their young ones. All species want safety and prosperity. When we remember this, peace becomes possible. The Keth trader representative, appearing on the communication screen as a being that looked like a mixture of octopus and butterfly, made sounds that the universal translator interpreted as agreement. The Keth collective has observed many species, the trader said. Humans show unusual ability to change their thinking when presented with new information. This is rare and valuable trait. The Zulani healer, who appeared as a tall, crystal-like being, also offered praise. Your medical cooperation with the Valdari shows promise for advancing healing throughout the galaxy. We would be honored to share knowledge with both species. But it was the message from the Threen explorer that meant the most to Jihoon. The Threen were known as the most peaceful and wise species in the local galactic region. Their approval would open doors throughout civilized space. The Threen Council has watched the events at New Sol Colony with great interest, the explorer said. Humanity has shown that they can grow beyond their initial aggressive impulses. We welcome humans as junior members of the Galactic Peace Alliance. The celebration that followed lasted late into the night. Humans and Valdari danced together under the stars, sharing food and stories. Children who had once hidden in shelters now played games with beings their parents had once called monsters. As the festivities continued, Jihoon found himself standing apart, watching the scene with amazement. A year ago, He had been a simple colony doctor treating the wounded from monster attacks. Now he was the architect of humanity's first successful interspecies alliance. Velthara approached and stood beside him, her massive form casting a protective shadow. "You think deep thoughts, Jihoon friend," she said. "I'm thinking about how much has changed," Jihoon replied, "and how much more will change." "Change is good when it comes from understanding," Velthara said. "Your species learns quickly. This gives hope for the future." In the distance they could see the construction of new buildings designed by both species working together. The colony was expanding not with walls and weapons, but with schools and laboratories and cultural centers. Most importantly, they could see the nursery complex where the next generation was being raised. Human and Valdari children learning together, playing together, growing up as friends rather than enemies. "What do you think they'll accomplish?" Jihoon asked, pointing toward the children. "More than we can imagine," Velthara replied. "They will not know the fear we once felt. They will see cooperation as natural and conflict as strange." A young human girl ran up to them, followed closely by a small Valdari, who moved with the fluid grace of his species. "The two children were clearly best friends, Dr. Jihoon," the girl said breathlessly. "Kelvar wants to know if you'll tell us the story about how you and his mom met." Jihoon looked down at Kelvar, one of Velthara's own offspring who had recovered from the poisoning months ago. The young Valdari's patterns glowed with curiosity and affection. "That's a long story," Jihoon said. "We like long stories," Kelvar said in perfectly clear human speech. So Jihoon told them the story. He told them about the fear and misunderstanding that had nearly led to tragedy. He told them about the courage it took to see past appearances to the truth beneath. Most importantly, he told them about the power of compassion to bridge any gap. As he spoke, more children gathered around. Human and Valdari young ones listened with equal fascination to the tale of how their two species had found peace. When the story ended, the human girl asked the question that showed how much the world had changed. Why were the grown-ups so scared of each other?